this question here says, what is the simplest radical form of 53? So simplest radical form, I think, is it square root of 53 they want to say, or I think it just means 53. Let me just assume 53 here. So it says, what is the simplest form or radical form of 53? So when we talk about radical form, again, how we would reduce something is if you have radical form like this, if you had like something like a square root of 49, for example, that would equal 7, right? Again, 7 squared would equal 49, right? So or 7 squared would equal 49, right? So basically, again, we know how to do, we know how to break down radicals to specific things, right? But what we have here is we have a whole number, it's 53. So when we talk about what is the simplest radical form of 53, how we can kind of approach this problem is by using we can actually just simply square the number. If we square the number of 53, we actually get a radical. We get a radical number, right? So for example, let's do this in blue. So for example, if I have 53 here, and I want the radical form of 53, if I take 53 and I square it, what that would give me is, let me take out my calculator, 53 squared. So that's 50. It's simply 53 times 53, right? That'd give me 2,809, right? So this here is 53 squared, which means, therefore, if I square root, if I take the square root of both sides, so if I take the square root of 2,000, so if I square root 53 squared, that means if I square root both sides, 2,809, this here is 53, right? This is 53. These two cancel out. Square root of 2,809 is 53, right? So therefore, that means the simplest radical form here would be kind of 2,809 is the simplest radical form, right? Because I know that because the square root of 2,809 equals the whole number 53, right? So again, that could be by radical for this problem. So I'm going to look at the what they did here. Okay, so this is weird. Okay, hold up. Okay, so they actually assumed this is the square root of 53. Okay, so this changes the problem now. So let me just redo this. So they're assuming that it's the radical form of root 53. Okay, so that actually changes the problem. So this here is not my answer here. So this here was for the whole number 53 and not square root of 53. So let me redo this problem. So how I would do this problem is, again, I would have to look at 53 here. I can think of it as I'm trying to think of what are the factors of 53. So let me just think about this in terms of factor of 53. I don't know if 53 is factorable. Let me just check. I don't think 53 is factorable. So when we talk about simplest radical form, this is actually like square root of 53 in itself, because I don't have any factors. 53 here is a prime number, right? This here is a prime number. I actually can't break that down into specific factors in order for me to find the simplest radical form. So this here is simply just root 53, right? I can't break this radical down into more parts. However, what we can do is you can actually sub into square root 53 and you can find it on a calculator. It equals like 7 point something, right? And basically, I think that's what the solution they did was here, right? They did some sort of they did a method-ass solution. So they're basically just dividing, they're taking basically the closest square root to this. So how they did that was they know that 7 squared is 49, right? So square root of 49 is 7, right? So what they're doing is they're dividing this 53 number by 7 to hopefully get some sort of value. So that's what they did here. 7 times 7 is 49, and then what they did was they brought this down. You have 4, and then what that does is it's going to you're going to add 2 zeros here. You're taking the 2 zeros, and then you're solving for something else, and this here becomes 142. When you times 7 times 2 is 142 here. So that's what they're doing. 7 times 2 is 144 in this case. So that's what they're doing here in terms of simplifying that. But when we talk about simplest radical form, we want it to be in a true radical form, right? So we really don't want decimals. So when we talk about simplest radical form, it's simply just root 53. If you want to solve for like the decimal in itself, you would either use a calculator or you would use this solution here, which is correct. So basically what they're doing is they're plugging in 7 and they're figuring out by kind of like reverse division, like what the 2 decimal places are. So in this case, so that's what they're doing in these steps here. And with that being said, you get kind of 7.28 as their as a square root of 53. So it's not an exact value, which I don't really like. I would actually personally just keep it at root 53, but this here is approximately 7.28 or plus or minus 7.28, right? So it's not a very like nice number in this case, but in reality, when we talk about simplest radical form, we actually want to place it in. We want to leave it within the square root of 53. We want to leave it in the 53. So this here, I'm going to say. I'm going to say here solution is correct. Solution is correct, but when we are talking about simplest radical forms, we want to keep our square roots and not have decimals. So that's kind of what simplest radicals are, simplest radical form, because we want it to be, we don't really want decimals in this case, so we can actually leave square root of 53 as square root of 53, and that's kind of the simplest radical form in itself. So I'm going to say solution is correct.